When I first blurted out, "Can you be my date for my ex's wedding?" I never expected Ethan Cole, my boss, the infamously stoic CEO of Cole Enterprises, to actually say yes. It started as a joke. Or at least, I thought it was. The invitation had been sitting on my desk for a week, mocking me. A shiny ivory envelope announcing that Ryan, my ex-boyfriend, the man I once thought I'd marry, was tying the knot with Melissa, my former best friend. The office gossip mill knew I'd been invited. I could feel the curious glances every time I passed by. So when my best work friend, Lila, asked during lunch, "Who are you taking to the wedding?" I rolled my eyes dramatically and said, "Oh, probably Mr. Cole. I'm sure he'd love to pretend to be my doting boyfriend for an evening." Unfortunately, Mr. Cole was walking by at that exact moment. He stopped. "Pretend to be your boyfriend," he repeated, one eyebrow raised. I froze, mid-bite of my sandwich. Just kidding, sir." But instead of brushing it off, he smirked. "A rare, dangerous thing. Friday, right? 7 p.m.? Send me the address." And just like that, Ethan Cole, the man Forbes called the youngest billionaire CEO in New York, had agreed to be my date. By the time Friday rolled around, I was a nervous wreck. The gown I picked was simple but elegant, emerald green satin that hugged my waist. My heels were high enough to project confidence, but low enough that I wouldn't trip in front of my ex. Then came the knock on my apartment door. Ethan stood there in a black tuxedo, his tie perfectly knotted, his dark hair just slightly tousled. He looked unfairly handsome. "Ready?" he asked. I managed a nod, but when his eyes swept over me, lingering for a moment longer than necessary, my pulse stuttered. "You look stunning," he said quietly. We drove in his sleek black car, city lights reflecting on the windows. The silence between us wasn't awkward, surprisingly, more charged, like an unsaid truth hovered somewhere between us. When we arrived, all heads turned. Ryan looked startled when he saw us. Melissa's polite smile faltered. And suddenly, I was very glad I had come. "Ethan Cole," Ryan said stiffly, shaking his hand. "Didn't realize you two were together." Ethan glanced at me, eyes twinkling. "It's recent," he said smoothly, his arm slipping around my waist. "But she's been worth the wait." I nearly forgot how to breathe. Dinner was a blur of fake smiles and whispered questions. Ethan was flawless, charming when needed, protective when I faltered, and always just close enough to make it look real. When Melissa leaned over and said, "I didn't realize you moved on so quickly, Avery," I just smiled sweetly. Neither did I. But sometimes, the best things happen when you're not looking. Ethan's hand tightened slightly around mine under the table. By the time the ceremony began, I almost forgot this was all pretend. We sat in the back row as the music began, the bride gliding down the aisle. My heart clenched. I'd imagined walking that same path once, but next to Ryan. Watching it now felt like finally closing a chapter. During the vows, though, something unexpected happened. As Ryan spoke, I glanced at Ethan. He wasn't watching the couple. He was watching me. His gaze was steady, searching, almost tender. When our eyes met, it felt like the world around us dimmed. "You okay?" he whispered. I nodded, though my throat felt tight. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Ethan's hand found mine again. Warm. Reassuring. Real. He stayed through the vows, but not just for me. It felt like he stayed with me. The reception was in full swing when I finally stepped outside for air. Fairy lights twinkled overhead, and laughter spilled from the ballroom. I didn't hear Ethan approach until he said, "You handled that better than I expected." I smiled faintly. "You mean, I didn't throw my drink at the bride?" His lips quirked. "That would have been entertaining." We stood in silence for a moment, the night breeze carrying the scent of roses. Then he said, "Why did you ask me, Avery?" I turned to face him. Honestly? I didn't mean to. It just slipped out. And you thought I'd say no? Of course. You're you, the Ethan Cole. You don't go to ex's weddings. You host charity galas and broker multimillion-dollar deals. He chuckled softly. Maybe I wanted a break from that. My heart thudded. So you came out of pity? No, his voice dropped, rich and sincere. I came because I wanted to see what kind of man was stupid enough to lose you. I blinked. What? He took a step closer, his eyes locking on mine. You've worked for me for 3 years. I've seen you handle crises with grace, manage impossible deadlines, and still make everyone in the office feel seen. I've noticed you for a long time, Avery. Maybe I just needed an excuse to show it. My breath hitched. Ethan. He smiled faintly. Don't worry. I'll only pretend to be your date if you still want me to. There it was again, that flicker of vulnerability beneath his calm exterior. I took a deep breath, my courage returning. What if I don't want to pretend anymore? For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Then we don't. His lips met mine under the soft glow of the fairy lights, slow, deliberate, and everything I didn't know I'd been missing. By the time we returned inside, the music had shifted to a slow song. Ryan and Melissa were laughing on the dance floor, blissfully unaware. Ethan offered his hand. Dance with me? I hesitated only a second before taking it. We swayed to the music, his hand resting lightly at my waist, my head against his shoulder. It should have felt strange, dancing with my boss at my ex's wedding, but somehow, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. As the song ended, he leaned down and murmured, "Still think tonight was a mistake?" I smiled up at him. Best fake date I've ever had. He grinned. Good. Because I'm planning on asking you out for real tomorrow. Months later, that promise turned into something more. We started dating quietly at first, keeping things professional in the office. But outside, he was different, as softer, playful, occasionally jealous in the most endearing way. When he finally took me to dinner at a rooftop restaurant one evening, I realized the irony. Because as the sun set over the city skyline, Ethan reached across the table, took my hand, and said, "Remember your ex's wedding?" How could I forget? I laughed. That's when I decided I didn't want to let you go. He smiled. So, Avery Lane, will you be my date for our wedding someday? I stared at him, my heart swelling. That's a very CEO way to propose. He laughed, standing to pull me into his arms. I can try again, if you want something more romantic. I shook my head, smiling through tears. No. That was perfect. He kissed me then, the kind of kiss that didn't need vows or witnesses to make it real. Because sometimes, the right person doesn't just stay for the vows. They rewrite them with you.